Hello, welcome to the Three Chords and Some Lies podcast with me, Andy.
And me, Jim. How you doing?
I'm all right, Jim. How are you?
Yeah, very well. I'm very pleased with some of the recent episodes, and I think as you see, I'm wearing the Iverson t-shirt. We had Neil on yesterday, and that was really good. But today we're going for a bit of a different format. We are obviously finding our feet, but we'll still ask you all to like and subscribe. But we're finding our feet a bit, and a new little section of the show, if you want to call it that. We're going to talk about some famous guitars rather than famous guitarists. So
yes,
but we're not going to do your typical ones. We're going to do the ones that we think that really stand out to us and are influenced on our playing and what we think. And we think we're up for chatting to a few more potential guests about their thoughts as well. So yeah, we'll kick on. As usual, I'll let you start. Which one are you talking about first?
Which one am I talking about first? Well, I've got about four. We'll probably do another episode of these because there's lots of well-known guitars out there.
Yeah, this is a fairly relaxed Saturday morning podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So mostly what's going on here is that isn't even necessarily about the guitar player, although it is on a couple of them. But my first one's actually Jimi Hendrix, someone I don't rate at all and I don't really like very much. I'm not a Jimi Hendrix fan at all, but his white Stratocaster at Woodstock has got to be one of the most famous guitars of all time.
Absolutely. I'm going to get all the details wrong, so you may or may not know them. So tell me about.
I know some of them. I've on a little bit of research which I've been doing. It was a standard, white Olympic white, 68 Stratocaster. That I believe he called Isabel.
Yeah, which was also post 1965 CBS buyout. So it was actually all the people that are always going on about vintage pre-CBS Strats. The one Jimi Hendrix played at Woodstock was not. And as you notice, people didn't enjoy it any less because it was a CBS Strat.
No, absolutely not. And he did the Star Spangled Banner on it. I mean, arguably badly, but it doesn't matter. It was such an iconic sound.
Iconic moments of guitar history.
Yes, it was. It was literally an iconic, legendary moment. I mean, he couldn't play it, and he obviously couldn't remember how it went or anything. And it was just a disaster area as a cover. If you're going to do a cover of your national anthem, get it right. But he was off his head on stuff, and that was the way that Hendrix was. And while I don't have a lot of time for him, what I do think about him was that he influenced an enormous amount of people. Fender was struggling at the time. They were having, they weren't doing any sales and stuff. And suddenly this lunatic came out of Seattle with this noise and their sales went.
Absolutely.
And for that, the guy's awesome.
Yeah. And that was after when the, basically I'm a bit of a nerd for this, as you would probably expect. The era that 68, well, 65 was the transition year. So those that anything up to 65 are the ones that people are like worth millions. Yeah. But then they had the L series, which was the transitional series, which was between 64 and early 66. Some of those still had that stuff, but the one Jimi Hendrix played was a full-on CBS Strat, so it was full-on in the start of the down years, for want of a better word. But the massive iconic big headstocks had just come in. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I think one of the most iconic guitars of all time, one of the most iconic performances of all time, using the guitar, the machine gun and the anti-Vietnam War stuff, and the whole thing. Fender, absolutely iconic moment of history.
And I think if you go down a high street anywhere in Britain or Europe or America and say, draw a guitar, they'll draw a Stratocaster. Absolutely. Get them to draw an electric guitar and you'll get a Stratocaster. Whereas if in the 50s you'd have had some big arch top thing or a Gibson,
you would have had a 335 or something of that effect.
Yeah, and now I think everyone would draw a Stratocaster, which is just what a genius design it is. And, it had inspired, Pensers and everything that came, and Ibanez that all came behind. I mean, this shape, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is absolutely stunning shape. It was the whole Stratocaster thing came about from the Stratosphere. That was the thing. They had the Telecaster.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because it was the rocket age, wasn't it? And they were all hitting the stratosphere.
Exactly. Well, the Telecaster was originally called the Broadcaster, as we know, but then
it was.
funny about the title of it, because they had a drum set called the Broadcaster, and they made it change to the Telecaster. Obviously, then it was telecast and television, so that was the TV age, and the Stratocaster came in, and it was the space age, the stratospheric.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. So for my first one, I mean, my one is really it's a very specific one. It's Robbie Krieger's SG. Now,
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's a 61 SG, which would have made it an SG Les Paul, because Gibson stopped making the Les Paul as we know it in 1960, and then they transitioned over to the Gibson SG Les Paul, which was SG meant something really exciting. Solid guitar.
Solid guitar, yeah.
Yeah, and that was all it meant. But basically, they were the Gibson. It was the new Gibson Les Paul, but Les Paul hated the shape, and he said, "I'm not going to be associated with that shape. I don't like it. So see you later." So you can't call it a Les Paul anyway. So you had these wonderful 1961 instruments. Issues with them, neck break. That's by the by. Very, very slim neck. Really, really, really easy to play. And the one I'm talking about is Robbie Krieger's. Now, I'm an absolute avid Doors fan, as you're all aware.
Yes.
He's one of my favourite guitarists. So one of my favourite, the first sort of things I wanted to learn on the guitar was The End by the Doors that we mentioned in an earlier episode. So for me, I don't want to go too much into the song and the work, because I've already done that bit, but Robbie Krieger's 61 SG, which I'm going to get shouted at because I bet it was a 62, is one that sticks in my mind as a really iconic instrument.
So my second one, and obviously this isn't like an argument, that we're not trying to make an argument for anyone. This is literally just a discussion about
and it's personal opinion.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And it's a sort of an educated personal opinion, just based on sort of being old and talking about guitars all our life.
And it's what made you think, wow, I want that. So
yeah. I mean, so I think the next one, and I would say, certainly of the modern age, the most iconic looking thing was Mark Knopfler's Stylo National guitar that was on the front of Brothers in Arms.
Changed everything, absolutely.
Changed everything. The album that was the biggest album of '85, or probably one of the biggest albums of the '80s.
The first CD as well, in fact.
Yes, it was. Yes, because they worked closely with Philips and got the first CDs out for it. So,
and what obviously I don't want to hijack your bit, but the thing that always stood out to me was on the CD itself. It had the center of the dobro guitar.
Yeah.
Actual, and it was so intrinsically linked to that.
It
what
was.
You'll know that I won't know is what songs on the album did they use to play? Did he play that on?
Well, he used. I mean, famously, not necessarily that album, and I think what did he play on it?
Romeo and Juliet. I know that.
Well, that wasn't Brothers in Arms, and it's not a dobro. It's a national. No. Yeah, it's a national stylo. So it's got what they've called the around here. They've got what they call the chicken foot pattern, because it was these sort of three sort of cutouts. And when I was going to buy mine, I actually called National up and on the phone and said, in America and California, and said, I'd like a National guitar, and I really like Mark Knopfler's. And they went, and I spoke to the guy called Don, and he was the head of National Guitars, the top guy who answered the phone, keeping it real. And I said, hi, Don. And I said, so what do you do, Don? He said, I own National Guitars. I was like, what? So I'm talking to the boss. And he went, yeah. So I said, and he said, the problem is with that. He said, and they do it now, but at the time they didn't make it. And he said, well, we could look at it. But he said, that's called the chicken foot pattern. We haven't made that in years. And we'd have to get all the laser cutters out. And they were waiting for the guy who turned because they work with a cymbal inside them.
Right.
And that's how they work. If anybody doesn't know,
so call it, don't they?
Yeah, it's a cone. Yeah, so you can get tricones and barycones and all sorts of stuff with them. But it's a single cone that someone turns out of aluminium, and the guy had broken his arm that does the turning, and there was only one of it. So I had to wait ages for it to turn out. So we got all the cases, but we haven't got the cones inside. And so that was the story. But they now make one. But I mean, that iconic image, it was blue with the pink square sky, gleaming National guitar.
Yeah. Which also strike a very, again, a tiny aside. One of my favourite opening lyrics of any song ever
Yeah.
is the Paul Simon song. It's Graceland. Yeah, it is
It's
Graceland.
Graceland, yeah, shining like a national guitar. Yeah.
Mrs. Delta is shining like a national guitar. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, he must have looked at that image, and it must have been surely one of the inspirations for that line must have been that cover.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, so Mark's guitar was actually given to him by his friend Steve Phillips that he was in. Yes, and so he was a long-time friend of Steve Phillips. He came here once. Yeah, sorry.
He used to play with him up in Newcastle and back in the day. Is that the guy?
Yeah. That's the guy. Many erroneously say that he taught Mark how to play, which isn't actually true. But they were very good friends, and he gave him this thing. It was a 1937 stylo. So they've got, and the stylo and the style is basically up the back. It's all palm trees. If you look at it closely, it's palm trees and on the back of it, because it was the same on mine, had the same, and on the back it was all palm trees. I had to sell it because I was poor, but which I gutted about because it was a beautiful thing. But I used it for playing blues, so because I'd seen a couple of blues guys back in the 90s, one of which we are going to be having as a guest soon, which we'll keep secret, but he's coming. So
he's an artist of theirs, isn't he?
I think so. He does sell them via his own thing, but we'll get into that at the day. But yeah, I mean, when you see a proper blues band, I'm not talking about Clapton and Mayer, and as much as I like John Mayer, these are proper blues guys, and they're doing proper Delta blues. And once you hear a guy standing in a room with a national star just thrashing the hell out of it, there is nothing like it, and it's awesome. But Mark Knopfler, of course, played it all, finger-picked, and famously probably Romeo and Juliet, but he also used it on the start of Telegraph Road.
Oh, really? I think Telegraph Road is my favourite Dire Straits song. That's another podcast.
It starts, and his is tuned to an open Dadgad tuning, I believe.
Yep.
And so all the shapes are sort of that shape, kind of doing all this sort of, and you can just you can pluck open strings. A beautiful guitar, and I would very much like one, but I think they're north of 4,000 now to buy one of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
second
lots and lots.
Find one close to that, but yeah, new.
They're new ones. I looked on their website actually recently, and they're about 4 new.
Oh, okay. So
so a lot of money.
But the only issue with those guitars for me is the fact that unless you're doing a lot of blues, you may find that it gathers a bit of dust, and that's the only issue. I think that may have been why you decided of all of yours that had to go, that was the one.
I think possibly true, yeah, because it's very niche.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I had a very, very rubbish, cheap copy of one once.
Yeah,
and it was rubbish, but still sounded quite cool for Delta Blues. I think
absolutely.
It was one of those. So I'll move gently onto my next one. And my next one is kind of a conglomeration of the same thing. And for the same reason. And it's going to be something which I know is probably not your thing at all, but that's fine. That's the purpose of these conversations. It's
quite right.
It is one particular guitar that is used in various chops and bits by 3 different people who influenced me quite greatly. Now, the first one I would say was Jay Mascis. Now, Jay Mascis is the lead guitarist of Dinosaur Jr., and in my opinion, one of the greatest living guitar players. He is a jazz master through that double rock pedal that your brother had that you loved.
Oh,
that's signature pedal.
The ZVEX thing.
He is one of the most famous curmudgeons in the rock and roll world. Almost a Van Morrison level of curmudgeonly, if you ever get to it.
That's a lot.
A phenomenal guitarist, and used to wrench an incredible sound out of a jazz master, and it's his jazz. He's got a signature jazz master, which is a Squire, oddly enough, a brilliantly built Squire. But his jazz master, I think it's a 59. I think it's probably a Heinz 57 with loads of different bits on it. But the tone he gets out of that. I've seen him a few times. Saw him at Primavera in Spain many, many years ago, and I just love the way that Jay Mascis plays the guitar. But that's me. It's a bit niche. He's a bit niche. But the other two people that followed him with the Jazzmaster, followed him, came before him. Who knows? Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth, and of course, Kurt Cobain. But again, he never really used a straight out Jazzmaster. Everything his one had some humbuckers in it. But again, I don't want to get too much. But let's just say, for the sake of this podcast, Jay Mascis Jazzmaster was one of the ones.
So, okay, was up there. My next one, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult subject in a way, because we've got people like us who know quite a lot about guitars, and guitar players there will be more famous guitars to us, and we're trying to mix in also some ones that everyday people would probably recognise. And I think out of all of the ones we've got today, probably Mark's Starlow is probably up there.
Yeah,
but my next one is, again, probably a people one as well as a guitar nerd one, is Francis Rossi's green Telecaster from the Quote.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A coveted guitar.
Well, whilst we were researching it, we found I found a link on Bonham's that I think it was going for 115,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm sure
but it sold. Yeah, it sold for. Yeah, I think it sold for 120,000. Because it's with the famous hole in that he drilled through it. I can't remember the story. If you know the story at home, tell us what it is. I did know it, and I've completely forgotten it, and I couldn't find anything about why he drilled the hole in it. But I know there was a quite sort of an amusing reason. But it was a bit of a sort of a parts caster.
Yeah,
it wasn't a pure telly. I mean, and some of the pictures. And what we'll do is we'll get pictures of all our iconic guitars, and we're going to put them on our Instagram, so everyone can have a look. And his Telecaster was a parts caster. It had Seymour Duncan bridge and single. It had a Seymour Duncan bridge. I think it had a Lindy Fralin neck, and then it had a lace sensor in the middle, like the Fender lace sensors that were on the deluxe Strats. Yeah. Geek. But what a noise! I mean, Down Down was played on it, and just And I saw Francis Rossi at the Cheltenham Literary Festival, and weirdly, a bit like there's some people that like this, that he just didn't care about it at all. Because a guy asked him, what about your guitar? And he was like, what, a Telecaster, the green one? And he was like, yeah, it's just a guitar, just not interested in it. And they sold it, and it was like, but that's made you a millionaire, that guitar, and it must have been your friend for this time. It's like, you just got rid of it. Didn't care.
Some people just like that. Was that the literary thing for his book that he wrote a few years?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Fantastic, that book. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It was quite interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was talking about his life, and that was a whole different subject. But, he's totally clean, goes running every morning and swimming and looks after himself. And, he was talking about the whole sort of Rick disaster area, and it was a really interesting interview. But I was stunned to hear that he didn't care about his Telecaster. I just don't get that at all.
No, I understand. Cool. So on to my next one. Right now, I'm going to show a little bit of ignorance here, because I don't know as much about this guitar as I'd like. So I'm open to criticism.
Yeah.
When I first ever came to the UK on a guitar safari, when I was about 16 years old, I went into a guitar shop in Earl's Court that was then known as Fat Rick's Guitar Emporium. He now is the guy who has, I think he's got a vintage and rare, I think, in Chelsea now, but that's by the by. And this is my first time. I had two experiences in that shop. The first experience I haven't told you about, and it's going to make you gasp. So I was sitting downstairs waiting for the owner of the guitar shop to come down, looking up at the wall at a white Les Paul Custom, which I'm not going to talk about, but it was up there. And basically, my mum had said for my 21st birthday that I could have a white Les Paul Custom, because they were nowhere near as expensive then as they are now.
Oh my God!
I think they were probably about $1,000 back then, but that was. Remember, at this point, I was 16, not 21. So that day, and the phone rang, and the junior guy there answered the phone, and he said, "Yes, I can Yeah, I'll. So you checking to see if your 12 string's done. What's the name? Jerry Rafferty. It was Jerry Rafferty on the phone, phoning to see.
No.
Yeah, so obviously I didn't speak to him, but he was on the phone. And then and then the owner came down. I picked up this Les Paul Custom. I couldn't play it at all because I couldn't really play it at all when I was 16. But he said, "Why the white Les Paul Custom?" And I said, "Well, I'm a massive Colt fan, and Billy Duffy plays one." And he went, "Yeah, Billy likes that one. He was in here yesterday." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that was when I started to realise that it was a small world when it came to Duffy. But yeah, so it's actually his White Falcon. So I've never owned a White Falcon. I know you have, but
I
yours is more
have.
U2 related reasons than Colt related reasons.
Yeah.
But his White Falcon from the era of about 85, I don't know when it was built, but he was playing it around the Love era of the Colt, 1985, and he still uses one now.
Yeah.
That famous intro to She Sells Sanctuary with all the flange and that, for me, is an iconic sound played on a White Falcon, which is the least practical guitar to play rock and roll on.
I agree.
But iconic, yes. Billy Duffy, super cool.
Absolutely. I've played it. I've taught it. My friend Grant plays it in his band live, and he goes on about Billy Duffy all of the time.
He's
a great guitar player. But apparently he had 12 effects on that intro. It wasn't just a chorus, a flange, and a delay. It was 12 of them, and you can hear when the song kicks in that noise of electronics just working.
It's a phenomenal track. I really, and also the album after that, they went straight out rock and roll, which was electric, and I love electric. And then they went kind of 80s rock with Sonic Temple. I really like the Colt. But that White Falcon is really good, and I reckon that Billy Duffy he's equally almost nerdy enough. He may even agree to come and talk to us one day. If you're listening, we'd love that.
Yeah, we would.
And also, I bought a Love pedal Kalamazoo because it's the pedal that he loved the most, and really it is my wife bought it actually for me. And
wow, okay.
My favourite overdrive pedal is the Love pedal Kalamazoo. It's very soft, very gentle. Anyway.
Now, just quickly, the White Falcon, because they did, when I bought mine, they did two. Yes. There was like an Indonesian-made one, which is still a lot of money, which is what I had. But there was also an American-made White Falcon, which was, I believe, has the record for the most expensive standard-made guitar that isn't a custom in the world.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know which one Billy had. I'm presuming he's got like a real American one.
Oh, no, the weird thing with Gretsch, and I've done some research on this one, and actually yours was made in the custom factory in Japan. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm so glad for this. So yours was the top level that you could actually buy at that stage when you had yours. Yours also had the slightly different pickups, but yours was the top that you could get.
Yeah.
You then had the Gretsch custom shop. And something tells me the guy's called Stan Smith. I don't know for sure. Yeah, he might be called Steve Smith, but he is one guy in one shop in New York who still makes Gretsch and the custom Gretches, and those are expensive. So we're talking 15, 20 grand. But the one you had was definitely not the lower level. It was definitely the top of the things you can buy, and it was a great thing. You played it with us on stage, and
I did. I played with the Subliminal Girls, didn't I? On your last gig, which wasn't your last gig in any way.
The last gig when we were young and beautiful, and anyone was even the slightest bit interested. Let's call it.
Yeah, that was a bonkers gig. Yeah, I did bring the Gretsch because I think my brother said just bring the. And I said I actually wanted to bring my Explorer, and he was like, "No, you've got to bring the outrageous looking Gretsch because it's bling and white and gold and mad."
Yeah. Beautiful, absolutely iconic guitar, and I've never owned one. I've owned 3 or 4 Gretches, maybe more than that. But
Gretches are good, because apparently is it the White Penguin? They're sort of Les Paul equivalent.
Yeah, they're also the Gretsch have the 2 levels. They've got the Electromatic level, which are very, very good. They're made in China, Indonesia.
But
they are very, very good. I mean, Nicky's got one. Danny's got Nicky's at the moment. They are, not for the money, they are outstanding guitars.
Cool.
Now, Then they've got the Gretsch professional level, which is where yours are, which are made in Japan, and that they were made partially in the Fender factory in Japan, but they are absolutely top line. They had the choice whether they were going to keep the production in America or Japan. And it wasn't a cost based choice; it was a quality based choice.
Yeah, because Gretsch are owned by Fender, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Well, they were.
They are still. They are as
still.
far as yeah. But never feel that yours was in any way, and it was definitely the absolute top of the line.
It was a beautiful thing, and it was enormous. It was just like playing a suitcase. I mean, it was just
enormous. And going back to what I said before, extremely impractical for playing rock and roll on, but a wonderful instrument. So
yeah, absolutely.
Just, over to you, mate, for the next one, because I'm aware of time. So
yes. So I think I've got a couple more. What was my next one? I can't remember what my next one was. Oh yeah, well it leads. We mentioned him before. Was Gerry Rafferty's famous Martin acoustic, painted by the legend that's John Byrne, who passed away I think earlier this year or last year, very sadly. And he did all of Gerry's artwork. He did the album covers from Night Owl and City to City. And I believe, because I follow, because his daughter Martha runs his Facebook page, and she posted a picture of it. And I've got a picture of it, and we'll get it on Instagram as well, like all the others. And it's just amazing. And it's in I think it's in I think there's a Paisley Gerry Rafferty Museum in Paisley in Scotland, and it's in there, I believe.
Well, my knowledge of Gerry Rafferty is nowhere near as good as it should be, so I need to listen to some more. And I know and I've always loved everything I've heard. As we were talking earlier about Nick Drake this morning, he's one of those people kind of never been right on my radar. So
we grew up with it. We grew up with Gerry because we just, mum and dad, particularly dad, used to listen to it. And we always had Gerry in the car, and his albums were they were perfection.
Yeah.
All of the time. There was never a bad song on them. Everything was, and it wasn't overly produced, but it was just beautifully produced on all of them. And Gerry Rafferty was a total genius, and that guitar there's no other guitar like it. And so, for the younger people watching, might not have heard of him, but everyone's heard of Baker Street. There are unborn children who've heard Baker Street. And he wrote a lot of his guitars on that thing. So it was a Martin acoustic that his friend John literally painted on the top of, and it's a lovely So check out our Instagram for the pictures, because they're very, very cool.
I will definitely find out more. So this one here is my is it my last one of today? Might well be, but let's see. So for mine, this is a really interesting one. Now, I am a massive, and I will make no bones about it, obsessive fan of Jason Isbell.
Yes, you are.
Stalked him to the point of meeting him in January. I love everything he does. He is flying the flag for the guitar nerd in the world as we currently exist.
He does love his guitars.
Yeah, absolute genius. And he has, and Gibson have just reissued or done a special custom limited run of these things. And I definitely will not be buying one, because they start at around 11 grand. But Jason Isbell tells the story really well. We'll put a link into it down at the bottom of this. But he went to I think it was Carter Vintage, and they had all of Ed King from Lynyrd Skynyrd's guitars there.
Okay.
And on the side, they had the Red Eye, which was his 1959 Les Paul Standard. Now, the reason it's called the Red Eye, in the same way as Mark Knopfler's got a Red Eye, his 58, is because they weren't selling, and they were in the window of guitar shops in America when it was really warm, and the tag would hang down over the top of the guitar here. So when the sun would bleach the nitro, underneath the tag it wouldn't bleach. So
of course,
red dot, which was called the Red. Now, Knopfler's is a Red Eye as well, and Ed King's had the most famous Red Eye. Now, it's in amazing condition. Someone who's become a very good friend of mine, and someone who's going to appear on the podcast with us, is a guy from OX4, a guy called Mark from OX4 Pickups. Now, this is going to be an interesting chat with Mark, because how this guy has done what he's done, I've got no idea. So I'm really intrigued to find out how.
Sounds good.
But he became friends with. He can't be that much. I reckon he's about my age, maybe younger.
Right.
Somehow he became friends with Ed King from Lynyrd Skynyrd and got Ed King's pickups and was able to replicate the exact copy of the Red Eye pickups.
Oh my word!
Now, they've got a cream plastic bit, its name I can't remember, for the bridge, and a zebra stripe on the neck. Now I've got those pickups in my Les Paul because I asked Mark to make me a replica of it as well because long story short, Isbell went there, tried the Les Paul, couldn't find out whether he could buy it. He phoned his accountant and they said no way. He phoned his manager, he said no way, and he phoned his manager again. He said, right, look, book me loads of birthday parties of loads and loads of rich people. I don't want any criminals, but any rich people who want me at their birthday party, they can have me. He got the money together. He said he was driving home that night from the shop and he got lost driving home because he couldn't get it out of his head. He then went and bought it, and he believes it's the greatest guitar he's ever played or owned. Gibson have remade it now, and there's loads of stuff about that. But I'm going to see Jason Isbell again on the 26th of November. I don't know if he travels with it, but for me, when you're talking iconic Les Pauls, there are so many. There is Jimmy Page's, Peter Green's. There's so many of them. But my favourite, and Knopfler's, of course, he's got two. He's got a 58 and a 59. The 59 he sold, but the 58 is kept, which is the Red Eye. Now, I could go on for days about this. So, James, let's just leave Isbell's Red Eye. Okay.
You can talk as much as you like because that's what we do. We are the guitar podcast. Anything about guitars, anything goes. I mean, the thing is we talked about guitar acquisition syndrome in a previous episode. It sounds like Jason Isbell has really got that quite badly.
He is obsessive gas man. He really is.
That is an iconic version of gas. That is, I literally do anything to own the guitar. I'll get lost driving. I'll do everything I can thinking about this guitar and completely lose my mind over it. That's proper gas. That isn't, I quite like that. I might have that one day. Get a loan maybe. That's gas is I must own that guitar no matter what. Gas. And
it's a very, very quick story about it as well. It does go on to the same. He also has a 57 Strat. And
nice.
Wrong. He's a massive Knopfler fan. He was standing in a room with Knopfler at a function in Nashville, and he was really, really, really scared. And his wife at the time, Amanda, said, "Go and talk to him." I said, I can't. Knopfler came up to him and he said, "Jason Isbell?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "I've been listening to your album all day. It's amazing." And he said, "My album?" He said, in that case, can I ask you, would you mind if I ripped you off? And Mark Knopfler said, absolutely no problem at all. So he ripped off Local Hero on his overseas song. But look,
that's cool. When Mark Knopfler comes to you and says, "I've been listening to your album." Oh, good. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Exactly, particularly when you're a bigger fan of this. And if you listen to overseas, it is Local Hero, and there's the tone, everything is. But that's he got Mark's permission, so it was all good. He told that story on stage when I saw him at Hampton Apollo. So,
that is cool. But Mark Knopfler ripped off Sting for the beginning of Money for Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go.
And people do. And actually, Mark Knopfler has said creative people are like sponges. They absorb stuff in and squeeze different stuff out. So there's always, how original is anything really? There's always something in there. And my last one, this was difficult for me, but it is Edge's Explorer. His 76.
So I've got stuff to say about Explorers as well. I'm really glad that's the one you go. And I'll
I was very tempted to pick his famous 70s, I believe it was the 73 Blackstone. But
we can do another one of these.
We could do another one of these, and I might add that in because that's what he played Weather Streets and a Name on, which is the best song ever. But his Les Paul, his Explorer, which he also got rid of because he's another one who doesn't care about guitars. He loves what they do, but he doesn't have any sentimental about it. And it sold for, I think again, I don't think it was Bonham's, but it's somebody. It was over nearly $500,000 he got for it.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he didn't have it still.
Yeah, so he got rid of that 4 years ago, which
Yeah.
I knew he'd got rid of, or I heard rumours that he'd had, but just why? Because that iconic guitar that he played on all these, like on their historic Red Rocks gig, 11 o'clock TikTok, and I Will Follow, he plays on it. He's got another one now, but it was a 76. I've actually seen the receipt for it that was in a YouTube book I've got, that he bought it in New York for $500. And he brought it back to the band. So you've got to understand, this is the 80s. The Explorer is a weird-looking thing, even for the 80s. And it was designed in the 50s with its big, like the old 50s car with the big... No one wanted them. Then the 70s kicked in, and they were a little bit more 70s-ish. So his was 76, and he bought... it was in New York, $500, and he took it back to the band, and they were just like, what the hell have you just bought this for? And they were all taking the mick out of him. And, he was like, no, I think it's going to be okay. And, yes, as always, he was right. And he wrote a Beautiful Day, came out on it, that he wrote in 2001. And I just think, is it famous? I mean, among guitar players, I'm sure, the general populace maybe, because there's a lot of U2 fans out there. But I've always loved Explorers, and I bought my Explorer as a direct result of hearing and watching. So it's got the 500T and the 496R humbuckers in it.
It definitely does, yes, absolutely.
Natural wood. And I believe he broke it on a gig. And the neck, he came back. Oh, no, there was a fight at an early U2 concert. Mm-hmm. And he jumped into the crowd to break it up because, you don't have violence at U2 concerts, which is good. And he looked back because he said he literally threw it off on the floor to get to stop this fight happening. And he looked back and it was sitting there lying next to an amp with the headstock off. And he was like, oh. So he took it to someone, and unbelievably, a luthier fixed it, and they put a piece that went in up here, there, and glued it all together again. And unbelievably, it was strong enough. And then he went on to play it for 30 years after that.
Right. This is the thing.
So
not always the end of a guitar. No, Explorer for me. My first proper Gibson American, or first proper American electric guitar was an Explorer. Now the reason for that was the cheapest one that I could get at the time, and it was a cherry red one I got in 1996. And I swapped it for something completely useless, and it still pains me to this day. And even the guy I was swapping it with was saying to me, "Are you sure you want to?" I'm not going to say what it was. He said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "It was so stupid." They kept it. But my reason that I got it, there was two reasons. One reason really is the fact that he was probably also playing it because it was the cheapest Gibson he could get his hand on at the time. Was Dave Grohl was in the first Foo Fighters album used a Explorer.
I did not know that.
He did indeed, because the very, very brief history of Explorers is that it originally came out in 1958. No one bought it.
No,
it is the rarest electric and most valuable electric guitar that's not necessarily owned by anyone particularly famous is a 1958 Gibson Explorer. They are more expensive than any Les Paul, and they are the rarest thing. I think Slash is
really,
but I think there was such. I haven't got the number. We can find it later. So few of them made. They then reissued them in 1976, which is the year I was born. The year that he got his from in Natural Wood. They then did another reissue of the 76, which was in 96, which is where I got mine from. And then yours is of the same era as my Explorer that I played in Rhesus that I sold when I literally couldn't afford to pay my rent. Somewhere in the UK is a natural Explorer with a white scratch plate, open humbuckers, and a gouge in it this long from when I dived into Aaron's cymbals at the end of a Rhesus gig, and his cymbal get straight. If anyone has got it, I will buy that back off you for whatever you want. I cannot find. I've looked for it for ages. Yeah, you're right. Again, going off on one. Explorers, they're absolutely iconic, and I completely agree.
I just love them. I just think they're just such an awesome sounding thing. Because mine have, I don't know, I can't remember the pickups. I think it's similar, but they're like the edges were the classic brass ones, but mine are the open black ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't. The one that I got, and I got it for ironically, I got mine for £500
Nuts,
because the
absolutely.
exchange rate back then was amazing, and
Yeah,
even local guitar shops said we can't get that for like a trade at that price.
yeah,
So it was a good old Gordon at Rudy's, and so I picked it up, but it was very pointy because the '70s ones were quite rounded on the point bits,
yeah.
and mine's quite sharp, and I didn't like that as much. But I love it to bits. It's it's a mental guitar, and it's awesome for rock. And I
Yeah.
covet it over the Les Paul that I had any day of the week.
Well, they also they don't look like they will, but they sit very nicely on the lap to play.
They do, yeah. They're actually weirdly nicely balanced. Apart from the case that they come in, you could play tennis on it. If you put a net over the middle, you could have a decent game of tennis on it. It's enormous.
I took my case out once when I had a transit van. I was walking towards the back of the Dublin Castle in Camden. It wouldn't have been a transit van; it was a different van. That's why. And I tripped, and as I tripped, I threw it, and it must have gone 15 feet in the air because of the weight of it, and it spun in the air, and I was just like, and it hit the ground, and I went up to it, and I opened it up. The only thing that was there was a tiny crack in the pickup selector knob. That was because those cases are so solid. That was the only thing that happened to it. So,
Yeah. I mean, my Explorer has like the strap. I put strap buttons on it eventually, but it kept falling off its strap and hitting things, so it's got dents and all sorts of stuff. But it's part of the pattern and it's part of its life. And did you see the Andertons video when they went to the Gibson vault in London, in the new Gibson place in London?
yes,
And they went to their secret vault, and there was a '58 Explorer in there.
Yeah.
And it was just like,
I think
oh my god,
the most valuable guitar in that place by a country mile, I would imagine.
Totally. I'd love to go and see that just to see a '58.
I didn't go down to the vault because I didn't know you could, but I went. I probably could have done it if I'd have asked. And I went, particularly now we're doing this. I might ask to see if anyone wants to come on the podcast and have a chat. Maybe we can get access to the vault. But
yeah, that'd be good.
I went up there to that shop, and it's quite impressive. So there you go. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it absolutely is.
good chat. Enjoyed that. A couple of honourable mentions. I'm not going to go into detail on it because I don't have the information that I want on the technical side of it and exactly how he came about it. And I don't want to tell the story because I know I'll get it wrong. Steve Jones's White Les Paul Custom.
Oh, yeah.
Big one for me.
Yeah.
I always wanted a White Les Paul Custom because of Billy Duffy, as I said before, but also obviously Steve Jones.
Yeah.
And my final one is again a Telecaster. And it is Joe Strummer from The Clash.
Okay.
I think it is I'm going to get the date wrong. I think it's a 65. I might be wrong, but again, we'll check it out. It was a black one. It was completely trashed. But Joe Strummer used to play with his legs sort of in almost a star-shaped angle, and he used to bang his knee like that, bashing stuff out on the time. I stole that look for Reese's completely, absolutely directly from Joe Strummer. But that iconic and I've always loved Telecasters, and I've always been a Telecaster fan and player. And even though this isn't a Telecaster, it pretty much is. It's got the Telecaster in the bridge.
Okay.
And it's fixed neck. So it's also fixed. It's a bolt neck, but no tremor, and there's something about that Telecaster that created some of the greatest songs of all time, but also super iconic. But the way that he used to play it on the offbeat, when almost regular, but not quite. So my last one, Joe Strummer's Telecaster.
Okay. No, that's a good one. Because I don't know. I'm going to do a Telecaster fact here that I might have got this wrong. And if I have got this wrong, we'll edit the hell out of it and get rid of it. But I believe that the solo on Stairway to Heaven was actually played on a Telecaster.
It absolutely was.
It was. Because everyone associates Page with obviously Les Pauls and the Blackie and the 3 pickups and know. But it was played on a Telecaster.
All the way through the Yardbirds. This is a great little story as well, which you may not know. All the way through the Yardbirds, Jimmy Page played a Telecaster. Through the first Led Zeppelin album and past to the first one, he also played a Telecaster. It was the same Telecaster. He only got a Les Paul because Joe Walsh, who at the time wasn't of the Eagles, was a guitar dealer.
Oh.
Said to him, your playing is great. You need to be playing on a Les Paul in order to rock more. And Joe Walsh found Jimmy Page's Les Paul for. So yeah,
that's bonkers. Isn't that a crazy thing to say? That right, you need a Les Paul because you've got a Telecaster and you're not rocking out enough. So you need a Les Paul. So like status quo, like hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly. One of the greatest rock of all time has been on a Telecaster. But in my opinion, they are the gods of guitars. But again, that's another thing for another time.
I know. We've got so many ideas for podcasts coming up,
which is good. So, but yeah, so I may have got that slightly wrong with the Joe Walsh thing, but it's almost dead right. So there's definitely. And this has come from the top of my very, very mangled head. So goodness knows how correct that is, but I'm pretty sure it is. But yes, you're absolutely right.
That's fair enough. So let's
going on to misnomed solos.
Yeah,
the very famous solo for Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd was not played on a Fender. It was played on a 1956 Les Paul.
With
P90s. But yeah, look, this isn't a podcast about the different guitars that you think would be played on certain things. That's a whole other day.
Our loyal viewer is used to us going off on tangents. It's what we do. But that's fine. So we will.
Great to chat.
It's a good one, we hope.
I was told off yesterday by someone else for saying like and subscribe at the end of the podcast. You're supposed to say it first, but so I will, and that is actually our avid fan. So
we're always getting in trouble with something.
And it was Tim Caulfield actually who said to make sure you say like and subscribe at the beginning. And I know he will be watching this because he does watch us.
He does.
I'm delighted that after seeing our podcast yesterday, it pushed him. He was already talking to Neil, but it pushed him over the line, and he's now ordered an Iverson as well, which is great.
Oh wow, that's such a cool story.
All good. But yeah, look, we're delighted that we managed to get that sorted. So
absolutely. And Tim is I think he was one of our first viewers, and what we must have to do one day, we will have him on as a guest.
Yeah, we will, absolutely. He can come and sit in your house.
Yeah, we could do. Yeah, and we could definitely do that because he's one of our most loyal early viewers, and we any comments. So anyone else watching, if you've got iconic guitars, famous guitars that you want to talk to us about, put it in the give us a comment, give us on Instagram, give us wherever you can find us, tell us about it, and we will we might even mention it next time we do one.
Absolutely all good. Look, see you soon. Take it easy.
See you soon. Take it easy. Cheers guys, thanks for watching.
Bye.